wages and high taxes, and like we hear in these sources, crucifixions without number, just the kind of cultural and political oppression that eventually led to a revolt. Well, 66 to 70 AD, the first Jewish revolt against Rome resulted in the destruction of Jerusalem, the destruction of the Temple and Temple Mount, and the enslavement of about 100,000 people, and the death of even more in the first revolt. How did that start? Interestingly, according to Josephus, remember, first century Jewish historian, wrote more than the whole Bible put together. All right, Josephus tells us that the first Jewish revolt started in Caesarea, and it started as a race riot. Jews on Shabbat, Sabbath, were going to their synagogue, and they get to the steps of the synagogue, and there are some pagans, and they're sacrificing pigeons to their pagan gods on the steps of the synagogue. This is more goading, more kind of just in-your-face insult, right? And so a race riot ensued here at Caesarea, and before anyone knew it, it spread to other towns and other cities, and it eventually engulfed the entire country, from Galilee all the way to Judea, and the rest is history, as they say. The best commentary, or the best accounts of that revolt, Josephus. And so you're going to get it. He has a whole book that he wrote called History of the Jewish War, and three other important books, ancient works, all from the first century, all from a guy who was born and grew up here. And they tell us, his four works tell us incredible things that help us to understand the backgrounds of New Testament realities. So when Paul talks about in Ephesians chapter 2, we're going to talk about this when we get to Masada, but when Paul is talking about in Jesus' death on the cross, in that sacrifice, he broke down the middle wall of partition, and he reconciled both Jew and Gentile together, and then reconciled them back to God in one body. And he's making a play on words, his own personal body that became the ultimate sacrifice, but he's talking about the body of Christ being composed of Jews and non-Jews. And he said in that way he makes peace with God. And in that whole passage you get words like enmity and separation and strangers and aliens and all that kind of language that's going on in Ephesians chapter 2. He's writing the book of Ephesians somewhere around 62, 63, maybe early 64. It's a, quote, prison epistle. It means he's in prison in Rome. It's one of the last things that he writes. And this is within like 2-3 years of the beginning of this revolt in 66. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about context. I know we're in jet lag and all that stuff, but somewhere this is going to find a home, on the inside, or maybe in your notes, or on some, audio recording that you're making, and it will mean something once we all wake up. Let's go ahead into the...
Wait, quick question. Are these replicas also?
These are replicas.
Oh.
Yeah. There's plenty of them, especially around Caesarea.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's lots. The best ones are in the Israel Museum. This is kind of the leftover stuff.